Humanity produces over 430 million tons of plastic annually, two-thirds of which are short-lived products that soon become waste. While the social and economic costs of plastic pollution range between $300 to $600 billion per year. Producing plastics is immensely profitable as its exponential growth over time demonstrates and creates utility and social welfare in its many uses throughout the economy. However, UNEP says plastics is profitable primarily because the external costs it generates have been shifted to others and into the future. While the primary plastics sector of polymers and additives accounts for between $600 and $700 billion per year in revenues, it's also inflicts a heavy burden on human health and environmental degradation, with the poorest in society facing the highest impact while contributing the least to plastic overconsumption and waste. UNEP concludes that while the estimates vary due to either the use of different underlying flows of plastic waste or the different methods and cost coefficients, the social and environmental costs associated with plastic pollution converge around the range of $300 and $600 billion per year. It is believed that as the data on ecological and health effects across the life cycle are further refined and validated, the accuracy of the estimates will increase.
PET bottles generally, these are packaging materials, or these are packaging materials. And when we talk about environmental sustainability, right, it's all about reintegration of what you call waste into production activities. It's all about enacting the circular economy program in itself. So which we are the front, we are the forefront of it all in Nigeria. Ogun State is making effort to play the lead in this whole area because we have we are the most industrialized state in Nigeria right now, and circular economy, sustainability are both integrated, and most of the industries have to make sure that they produce responsibly. And this is the area where sustainability comes in. So when we talk about the PET, which is the packaging product, all right, and sustainable living, it's all about making sure that each PET bottle, after the shelf life, you're able to account for it. You're able to account even for the usefulness or how you're able to discard it in a responsible manner without being injurious to the environment. And one of the key areas of doing that is to make sure you convert this material into other useful products. Like I said, bottle to bottle, you can convert PET used bottle into new bottle. And we have one of the first plant of a bottle to bottle in Nigeria is right there in Ogun State now. All right, where every used PET used for packaging product, you can convert into another bottle to be used. The plant is here now and is producing. That's the one key area in sustainability. The other leg for the usefulness of the PET is in conversion into fiber for textile making, for furniture making. So when you have a viable secondary usage for these materials, then you raise the value, the incentive, you improve on the incentive. It will enable creativity in collection. And let me tell you, one of the key areas we're looking for is this. For presently, you pay for a ton of PET at about 250,000 naira for a ton of collection. I can tell you what we need to pay for a ton is 1.5 million naira. Because if I take the same material to Durban in South Africa, or I take it to China or elsewhere in Europe, I will make over 2 million naira for a ton of waste. So whatever we are paying right now, we are underpaying those who are collecting, and that is affecting the mop-up rate, mainly by those who are exporting or those who are using for secondary value. Then you can see that you have more collectors and you have more green jobs that will be created in that line.
Taiwo Adewale has been in the waste management industry for 21 years. and today is one of the many local entrepreneurs helping to mop up plastic waste in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. His organization, Waste Swap, is a community recycling center which operates an incentive and cash reward scheme by collecting recyclable waste materials from registered consumers and in turn rewards them based on the volumes which they can accumulate and use to redeem cash and numerous household items offered through the reward system.
Encourage the consumer is incentives. Once I know I'm able to get some token or get something back in return from this bottle, so once I finish drinking, I dispose responsibly because I know I can get a token. That's why I can see all this plastic here, because for every bottle you bring here, you get something back in return. So once there's an incentive, people will be encouraged. And now we are trying to reduce the impact, because you can imagine during the rainy season, looking at this volume of plastic in the drainage or in the environment. And Ajeguna is very close to the water area, the water bodies and so on. So you can imagine if all this volume end up in the ocean, then they break down and we start having what we call the microplastic. And even most of the fishes we consume already, they contain microplastic. So as an individual, as a company, as a business, we have to look at the business model, because people have been talking about problem. So, but as a private company, as an investor, as a company, you look at the solution and which we are doing. So, what we are doing now is providing the solution. There's a problem, but we are not seeing the problem, but we are bringing the solution. And the solution is to make sure no single pet in the environment or even in the canal or even find their way to the ocean. To scale it up, I will have solution to this. Just like what we are doing, we have what they call the cluster. For instance, in Nigeria now we have 40 CDs. So it's to make sure on every CD, and the CD comprises of about 3 streets. So 3 streets together, telling them on this street, 1, 2, 3 street, all your plastic you are generating, this is a center page, you take it and get cash in return. So what Lagos State need to do is to encourage what they call with cluster, to make it easier for people that every single street you have a drop-off center, you have a collection center per street, whereby people can easily drop off and get something back in return. So to make this go round, looking at the state, we need to embark on what we call cluster. But another problem might have to do with space, because Lagos is small. Lagos is small in terms of land mass and comparing to the population, so getting space. So that's why we say, okay, even if you have individual that will have a space in my house, this is the volume we can take. So once you have a cluster, 2 or 3 people on the street can form a cluster, come together and make sure once I take my plastic there, I get something back in return. In fact, the time we come in Lagos, whereby once people see you drinking water, they be hanging around you just for you to throw the pot so that they can pick it up, so they can take it to the nearest collection center and get reward for it. Most of the fishes we consume now contain a lot of plastic, microplastic. I know this microplastic, now people are talking about cancer, looking at the health implication, especially people are talking about cancer. And what is the cause? It's from all those plastic, microplastic. So once you wait that, should I throw this in a way or get a token in return? Because one way or the other, people consume these fishes and there's no way it will affect us. And even if you look at the environment, for instance, now we are talking about the issue of climate change. Once the drainage are blocked, there won't be easy flow of water. It will lead to flooding. So, and this plastic, they don't decay. They can remain for the next 600 years. So once they block the drainage, anytime it rains, it leads to flooding. And once there's flooding, people can't go out. And even when you have stagnation of water, it breeds malaria and so on. So one way or the other, plastic has a lot of impact on the environment.
African Cleanup Initiative, a local environmental organization that collects the bottles, cans, drink cartons, and plastic containers brought into the schools by parents and sells them to recyclers. It is believed that with about 2.5 million tons of plastic waste annually, Nigeria ranks ninth globally among countries with the highest contributions to plastic pollution. Unfortunately, over 88% of the plastic waste generated in the country is not recycled. Although there are several recycling initiatives in Nigeria, only a small percentage of plastic waste is recycled. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, less than 10% of plastic waste generated in Nigeria is recycled, with the majority of the waste ending up in landfills or water bodies. This situation exacerbates the already critical waste management challenges, including flooding, soil degradation, and air.
Presently in Nigeria, the total production of these plastic bottles is about 5 billion bottles every year, which is about 250,000 tons every year. So you can imagine in the last 10 years what have accumulated in the environment. So and whenever the rainy season is here, you see everybody complaining, oh, my drainage is blocked, or there's flooding. But what actually broke these drainages are the plastics. So that's why we try as much as possible to sensitize people and make sure we give them incentive that look, instead of allowing your plastic to go into the to go into your drainage or to get into your canal, bring them to us, you get cash in return. And that's why we try to do as much as possible to do door-to-door collection, to even make sure by the time the PSP come to your house, there's no single plastic in your dustbin. You must have separated them because you get incentive in return for it. So we are doing everything possible, but the key thing has to do with awareness and education, because that is why we see work on the road now. You see the plastic, and most people don't pay observation. If you look at majority of this plastic now, there's always a sign on it: keep environment clean, recycle. But most people don't. People just buy, they drink, they don't even read what is on it. And so that's why the producer too has a lot of responsibility to do in time of awareness creation. The NGOs, the private sector, everybody, even the government, they have a lot to do in time of awareness creation. For in terms of technology, what I know for now, we have some app already, because we have a lot of IT people that came in with app, and we have individual collectors that created app. But the major one is what they call the Packham app, which is just like an Uber, whereby you don't need to leave your house. You can easily pick your phone, you have some plastic, have some recyclable. Then on the app, you make a request. Then they come to us, pick them up and pay. Then other innovation is we have like 3 companies now in Lagos State that do what they call bottle to bottle. From the old bottle, they produce new bottle. And a very good example is what Nestle has done recently. Every Nestle bottle you pick up now is around 30% recycled product and 70% virgin. And on the bottle, you can see it is written on it, this bottle is made from another bottle. And that is done for them by a company called Aleph in Agbara, whereby from this old bottle now they produce new bottle. So the innovation is coming in to make sure it's not completely a virgin product, but recycled and virgin mixed together. The app is developed by Nigeria. In fact, almost every collector, like the Packham app, is developed by one Mr. Adeleye, who came up with the technology and was able to partner with Loma. And Loma was able to partner with all the recyclers, even with schools. Almost all the public schools you go to now, they talk about Packham, the schools collect, and with the app, they do the collection. So it's done locally.
The challenges: plastic recycling presents a significant opportunity for Nigeria. The continent's recycling industry is valued at over $3 billion dollars and has the potential to create jobs, promote sustainable development, and reduce plastic waste pollution. Nigeria can leverage its population size and abundance of plastic waste to establish a thriving recycling industry that can address the country's waste management challenges.
The first footprint in energy, carbon footprint, is in the movement, is in collection, transportation, logistics, moving the collected material from point A to point B. All right. Now, what you do in reducing that is to make sure that you densify this product at the hub, at the muster points. You get it densified through shredding, so that what you are moving so much with less fuel. You don't move them in bits and pieces, so that the energy consumption at that level is reduced. So every hub where you have the collection point, there's always a shredder or a baler that must be there to make sure you compress, so that you have a more dense material. If you put loose PET bottle uncompressed in 1 trailer load, in a 30 cubic meter trailer load, all right, and you put PET that will fill it up, what you'll be having in that PET in that trailer will be just like about 3 tons, okay, because of the weight of the bottle. But when you get it compressed, when you have the shredding and you have it shredded into bits and flakes, you can get about 30 tons in the same 30 tons trailer. So the same fuel you are using to move 2 tons is what you're going to use to move 30 tons. So that's a way to reduce the footprint for logistics. Now, two, for conversion, the use of kind of energy that you use, what we are encouraging is the use of gas turbine. So most of the industry that are using conversion in Ogun State right now, almost all of them are on gas turbines. They're not using diesel generators. No, they are all right now on gas turbines. So it's cleaner than using a diesel. All right, and some of the extruders, some of them have solar extruders that you can use. So there's a way to energy transitions for most of these conversion plants to move from the dirty fuel, you call it, to clean fuel. And we are working many of them. And they, as every year they bring out their ESG report, we look at it with them. And the energy transition, one of the components that we use in following through with them. So it's highly possible to reduce your carbon footprint in conversion process. When we talk about PET recycling, you can unbundle the process to collection, then the hub, all right, from the user's point, the collection logistics from the user to the hub and to the recycling plants. All right, so the creativity around that area is to make sure that you encourage even house owners to gather their bottle themselves and go directly to the recycling plants or to the hubs. All right, so that everybody can have that encouragement on their own to collect their money directly. That is one. Now, then we have these dispensing machines, okay, which can be fabricated locally also, where you take your bottle there in most of the shops. Petrol stations can have it, where you take your used bottles, you take it there and you slot in your used bottles, and you get a kind of vouchers, food vouchers, shopping vouchers that will get printed out for you that will have values that you can use in other areas, in the fuel station, to buy fuel. So, and I think now that fuel is expensive, we now have, we've been talking to the engineers, the students in the universities right now to see how they will design these voucher dispensers that will be attached to the fuel stations in Ogun State. That we want to run with it with NNPC stations, whereby you see these dispensing machines. And all you do is that go to any NNPC station and throw in these bottles, and the fuel voucher comes that you can use in those gas stations. I get you, mean, and it's an incentive that makes sure that when you are going to the gas station to buy fuel, put your waste in your trunk, and you are not just buying fuel, you're also making money while buying fuel. And I think we're going to scale that. We want to run that pilot in 1 or 2 cities in Ogun State and see how it goes. Then we'll scale it up to other big cities in Nigeria. That's one way we want to use our technology to drive the incentive in bridging the cost. So it makes it a lot less when it comes to logistics and the footage when it comes to carbon footprint in collection and conversion. And it brings incentive for the conversion. And it also jack up the sales for most of the stations, because normally it will attract more traffic into your stations.
Nigeria is believed to have an opportunity to become a leading exporter of recycled plastics globally. According to the United Nations, Africa's demand for plastic materials is projected to increase by 67% by 2030, providing a significant market for recycled plastics. With 3 market shifts: reuse, recycle, and reorientate and diversify, and actions to deal with the plastic pollution legacy, the report released in May, just before the talks on how to reduce plastic pollution, with the hope of agreeing to a binding treaty that will be implemented before the end of 2024.
We gathered here in Paris because the linear plastic economy is gushing pollution galore, choking our ecosystems, warming the climate, damaging our health. And as ever with the triple planetary crisis, that crisis of climate change, the crisis of nature and biodiversity loss, and yes, the crisis of pollution and waste, people in the poorest nations and communities, they suffer the most. Current commitments will only reduce plastic pollution by 8% by 2040, so the tap is still wide open. And this agreement could be, must be, shall be the tool that the world uses to close that tap. Please bear in mind that only elimination, reduction, a full life cycle approach, transparency, and a just transition, only those can bring success. Because the truth is that we cannot recycle our way out of this mess. Recycling infrastructure is unable to... Thank you. Recycling infrastructure is unable to cope with today's volumes. To me, it is about redesign, 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 and then some redesign. And so first, redesign products to use less plastics or no plastic at all, particularly unnecessary and problematic plastic. Is there really a need for micro and nanoplastics in so many hygiene and beauty products? Must shampoos and soaps be liquefied and delivered in a plastic containers? Because essentially, we're just shipping water around the globe in these liquid products. Why not ship solids? Why not ship dry powder or compressed materials? And why not, when we then ship these, ship them in compostable or recycled materials or other organic options? Why can't we do that?
The third session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution, including in the marine environment, took place from the 13th to 19th November 2023 at the United Nations Environment Programme's headquarters in Nairobi, Kenya. In March 2022, at the resumed fifth session of the UN Environment Assembly, a historic resolution was adopted to develop an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. The resolution 5/14 requested the Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme to convene an intergovernmental negotiating committee, which is to be based on a comprehensive approach that addresses the full life cycle of plastic, including its production, design, and disposal. The Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee began its work during the second half of 2022 with the ambition to complete the negotiations by the end of 2024. The first session of the INC, known as the INC1, took place in Uruguay from the 28th November to 2nd of December 2022, followed by a second session, INC2, in Paris from the 29th of May to 2nd of June 2023. The third session, INC3, was held from 13th to 19th of November 2023 at the UNEP headquarters in Nairobi, Kenya. During the first round of talks in 2022, countries set an ambitious deadline of having a legally binding treaty agreed within a year. Dozens of countries listed public health as one of the priority concerns in limiting plastics production and waste during the second round that ended on the 2nd of June 2023. Some environmental groups criticized the report for focusing on waste management, which they saw as a concession to the global plastics and petrochemicals industry.
There are studies showing that there's microplastics in our air, in our water, and in our bodies as well. And that's just one facet of the problem. If you go into the communities where plastic production happens, they're already suffering from very serious health risks and health conditions because of emissions, of contamination from these plastic production facilities.
The UNEP report also identified 13,000 chemicals associated with plastic production, more than 3,000 of which were considered hazardous.
Under Agenda Item 6, the committee has before it document.
But after a rocky start to a week of negotiations, around 180 countries agreed to develop a first draft by November. Though the first half of the 5-day negotiations was spent arguing over procedural issues, delegations split into two groups to discuss the range of control measures that can be taken to stop plastic pollution, as well as whether countries should develop national plans or set global targets to tackle the problem.
As we roll out this redesign,
The start of negotiations were bogged down by more than 2 days of discussions focused on the rules of procedure for the talks. Saudi Arabia, Russia, China and others objected to the idea that decisions on the treaty could be adopted by a majority vote rather than a consensus, which gives one or a few countries the ability to block adoption. Some that have formed a high-ambition coalition comprising Norway, Rwanda, New Zealand, the European Union and others have called for a top-down approach where global targets are set to reduce virgin plastic production and eliminate fossil fuel subsidies, among other measures.
The EU and its member states are fully committed and determined to this process, and we look forward to constructively engage with all parties to move our process forward. Time is short. We need to be bold and innovative and act without delay. We must work together in a cooperative and constructive spirit to end plastic pollution.
However, with a hangover of delays from INC2 and stalling tactics from a handful of low-ambition countries, INC3 negotiations closed with no agreement to develop a first draft, only an updated or revised version of the zero draft with all options captured within, and no agreement to undertake formal intersessional work. This leaves negotiators with a lot of work at INC4 coming up in April 2024, both agreeing on the first draft and progressing negotiations toward the final text, which member states committed to sign by the end of this year.
A critical step in the negotiation to make sure that that zero draft, which came into this meeting, and in our view, as is often the time, it tends to be an underwhelming document, needed to be filled out with a broader range of views from governments. That we now have in the document a wide range of views that will carry forward into INC4, and at INC4 that's where we expect governments to start to narrow down and identify areas of consensus that will eventually go into the agreement.
During negotiations, as is the case with many international instruments, financing was also a strong topic of contention. Many governments, particularly from the Global South, emphasized the need for financing and robust equity measures to ensure effective global implementation. Private finance was not a major part of formal discussion, but was highlighted by some negotiators as an important source of capital to fund treaty aims. Financial institutions from around the world have expressed their concern around the plastic pollution crisis and their willingness to support efforts to tackle it by redirecting funds. Before INC3, 49 financial institutions with over $3.5 trillion in assets under management signed an open letter to government calling for mandatory corporate disclosure within the treaty in order to provide the data they urgently need to facilitate these shifts in financial flows. At present, significant data gaps exist across the plastics industry, which hamstring investors' efforts to identify pollution mitigating activities while also hindering effective evidence-based policy making and decision making by the private sector. Harmonized and comparable plastic-related corporate data obtained through disclosure has been said to be crucial to unlocking the trillions in private capital required to help solve financing issues, and will remain in sharp focus among negotiators and private sector actors in the coming meetings.